Massachusetts home buyers, do you like being able to make an offer on a property and waive your home inspection? Well, as of October 15th, 2025, that is over. Home sellers, when you've sold a home or you're selling a home, would you enjoy receiving an offer, or have you enjoyed receiving an offer where the buyer is waiving the home inspection and they let you know that when they made the offer? Perhaps it was a multiple offer situation. Well, guess what? Buyers are prohibited from doing that anymore. And if you as the seller or your listing broker that you hire to list your property accepts that, you are essentially violating this new law here in the state of Massachusetts. I'm Anthony Lamacchia, broker owner of Lamacchia Realty, and we serve all of New England and South Florida. But for today, I'm going to stay focused on this new law here in Massachusetts with respect to home inspections. And I'm going to walk you through how this came about, the steps that occurred to get here, and then what you need to be thinking about and how you need to be operating, whether you are a buyer or seller, now that this law is taking place or has taken place. So, first, I want to go back to August of 2024. You can see, we'll pull it up on the screen there. Chapter 150 of the Acts of 2024, an act relative to the Affordable Homes Act. Section 45, Chapter 143 of the General Laws is hereby amended by adding the following section. They get into, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities shall promulgate regulations to ensure that no seller of a residential structure or a residential condominium unit or an agent thereof shall, get ready for this is the law I'm reading, condition the acceptance of an offer to purchase on the prospective purchaser's agreement to waive, limit, restrict, or otherwise forego the prospective purchaser's right to have an inspection, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on. Then it goes on to say in number 2, as you can see there on the screen, accept an offer to purchase from a prospective purchaser or agent thereof who, in advance of the seller's acceptance of offer, informs the seller either directly or indirectly, and it goes on and on. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, okay, it means that you as a home seller, when they say you can't condition your offer, you can't say to your listing broker and then your listing broker convey to the prospective buyer broker, hey, you guys can make offers, but just so you know, whoever's doing an inspection, it's not even going to be considered. If you want to land this property, you need to waive your inspection. Can't say that. Now, in the practical world, that really was not happening. There may have been some rare cases a few years ago when inventory was extremely tight, where maybe some sellers got a little pushy, but in the real world, very few sellers were actually conditioning the sale of their home on that. And then it goes on to say, and I'm trying to put it into normal language for you, you can't accept an offer. So think about this one. If you're a home seller and you receive an offer that says right on it, waiving inspection, or there's an X through the home inspection clause, you as the seller cannot accept that offer as it stands right there. Can't do it. And that's what this law set out to do. This law went on to have a few other things that are a little tough and a little bit over the top. Thankfully, since this went into place last August of 24, they came out with regulations that are a little bit looser, but overarching big picture, they're essentially what I explained. I also want to point out in the law, there are some exceptions to the rule. Siblings, interfamily sales, if a couple's getting divorced and buying from one or the other, that's, this gets pushed aside. Let's look at the regulation. There's about 4 pages here, but I'm going to hone into the part that I just went over on the law a little bit. You can see limitations of waiver of a home inspection and requirements of seller. Notice how we keep talking about the seller. And home buyers, I want you to stay tuned in here because this affects you. A seller of a residential property or their agent shall not, see number 1, condition the acceptance of an offer to purchase or the execution of an agreement to sell on the prospective purchaser's agreement to waive, limit, or restrict. Same thing. Number 2, seller of a residential property or their agent shall not accept an offer to purchase from a prospective purchaser or an agent thereof if the offer to purchase is accepted or any other contract document related to the sale would require the purchaser to waive the inspection. If you go further down in it, it talks about exemptions. I think I mentioned family. I mentioned if there was a divorce situation. There's also something in here for foreclosures. But the purpose of this video is to talk to the masses, to talk to the majority of home buyers and home sellers. So I want to point this out to you. Now, if you're a home buyer, maybe you're a home buyer like me. I've been buying many properties for flipping and investments and things for more than 20 years. I haven't done a home inspection in 20 years. I don't necessarily recommend that to the typical home buyer. I'm someone that is a proponent of home inspections, and I think that a typical buyer, an everyday buyer, a first-time buyer, even a second buyer, they should do a home inspection because you'll learn more about the property. You don't necessarily have to learn, what you're going to use to negotiate or cause a problem in the sale, but you'll learn more about the property that can help you plan for the future. Every home out there, even if it's brand new, has something that needs to be fixed or adjusted, and getting an inspection will help you. But this law, frankly, in my opinion, as the broker owner, this law goes over the top. It forces the hand and it takes away rights. But it is what it is, folks. So if you're a buyer that wants the ability, or maybe perhaps in the past enjoyed your ability to waive a home inspection to obtain an advantage as a home buyer, that advantage is gone. You can't do that. You can't convey that message. And if you're a seller, you can't accept that. You can, of course, counteroffer and say, hey, I can't accept your offer as is. Okay? Now, some people have confused this and said, well, does this mean that every buyer has to do a home inspection on every property that's purchased? The answer is no. Buyer still has a right to not do the inspection. What the right that has been taken away is they don't have the right to make an offer and make it clear to listing broker and or seller, hey, we're waiving our inspection. That advantage is gone. So we want you to be aware of that. Now, what the state did, and given the law, I actually think this was smart. They came out with a form, and we're going to put it up on the screen in a minute, that reminds me of the lead paint form. It's like a notification or a disclosure, and it says right across the top, Massachusetts mandatory residential home inspection, right? And, it's a form. And what it does is it informs seller that they can't do these things. And I'll read a little bit from it, okay? And you can see on the top there, it says, pursuant to Massachusetts regulation, it names the regulation that I just showed you. Then you get to the next paragraph. It shows the Mass General Law, section 140 or chapter 143. I just went over that. And look where it says, prohibit a seller from accepting an agreement to purchase contingent upon waiver. Again, they don't want sellers accepting it. So sellers, you have to take this extremely seriously. And, I did a bunch of videos leading up to this over the last year on a specific page we have for realtors. And I sort of made a joke, but I wasn't joking, that I said, well, geez, imagine if you're a home seller and you receive an offer $27 million over asking. You as a home seller naturally are going to want to accept that. This law prohibits you from doing that if as part of that offer, you are informed that the home inspection is waived. Sounds completely insane, doesn't it? It does, but I'm not the governor. I can't have an effect on this law. We were fortunate to participate in suggestions for regulation through our general counsel, but we can't change the law. It is what it is, and I'm here to teach you about it. So it goes on to talk about seller's disclosure. Each seller hereby represents and warrants that the agreement to purchase is not contingent upon waiver, limitation, or restriction of buyer's choice to obtain a home inspection. Well, of course, that's what that's making clear, and they want the seller to sign that. Buyer's acknowledgement. Each buyer hereby acknowledges that they may choose to have the premises inspected by a licensed home inspector of the buyer's choice and acknowledges that this disclosure has been provided to the buyer herein. So they came out with this form on purpose, and I'm glad about the form because it sort of takes the blame off the realtor. There's going to be a lot of realtors that inform buyers and sellers about this, particularly in the beginning of this law going into effect. And there's going to be a lot that say, well, what? I've been buying properties for 40 years. I don't want to do an inspection. I'm a seller. I want to accept that offer. Why can't I? Why are they stopping me? Well, this is what we deal with when we are, in a place that a law like this went into effect. Agent's acknowledgement. Seller's agent hereby acknowledges that each seller has been informed of the seller's obligation under 760 CMR, blah, 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 and further acknowledges that this disclosure has been provided to each seller and buyer herein. So, another thing I want to point out. As you can see in this form, they got the buyer signing, seller signing, and seller's agent signing. And this is the part that I want to point out. The enforcement of this is going to be on the side of the listing broker, is going to be on the side of the seller's agent. And what I want to do is I want to show you some of that language so that you, the consumer, you, the buyer, you, the seller, can understand why the listing agent is being very strict about this form, and maybe your buyer's agent is asking you, and why it's being adhered to. Okay, so let's go back to the regulations for a few minutes here. Go to the last page, and you can see 74.05, relation to other laws. This is where enforcement comes into play, and I want to show this to buyers and sellers because I want you to understand how incredibly serious this is, and how incredibly serious real estate brokers and salespeople have to take it, and you're going to see down the bottom, so don't sellers. Let's start with the first paragraph. A failure to comply with the provisions of 760 CMR 74.03. 74.03 is the form that I showed you. The Massachusetts mandatory residential inspection, call it a disclosure or notification. Failure to get that form signed shall, see the word shall, constitute an unfair or deceptive act or practice in the conduct of a trade or commerce, blah, blah, blah. That form is a must. Buyers and sellers have to sign it, as well as the seller's agent, like it says on the bottom. Second bullet here, B. A violation of, and then, the various laws, may constitute an unfair or deceptive act or practice in the conduct of a trade or commerce, blah, blah, blah. Notice how it says may. They're saying that if you allow this, okay, if a real estate broker allows this, it may constitute being considered unfair or deceptive and may constitute 93A. So not using the form, automatic 93A violation. Not adhering to it and real estate brokers participating in this occurring may constitute. Very serious stuff. Now I'm going to go on to the third bullet, which says number 2. A violation or failure to comply with the provisions of 760 CMR 7403 by a real estate broker or salesperson may constitute a violation for which the Board of Registration will be involved. That means a real estate broker or salesperson's license. So they're talking about 93A violation that is essentially inevitable if there's no use of the form. Allowing it to happen during a transaction may constitute 93A and may constitute a violation of licensing law. This is very serious. Now, number 3, which is the fourth paragraph of this section, is sellers. And sellers, hear me loud and clear, and buyers, please be reasonable, and you listen to this as well. In an action for damages brought against a seller within 1 year from the date of the first written contract, the seller's failure to comply with 760 CMR 74.03 may be evidence of the seller's intent to misrepresent or conceal a material fact in the real estate transaction. Home sellers, you do not want that to happen to you. So I will end with this. Don't try to look for loopholes. Don't try to look for ways around it. If you are a home buyer, make your offer. Say you want to buy the property, make your best offer. Don't try to communicate in some way, shape, or form, certainly not in the contract or emails or anything like that, that you want to waive your home inspection. Not a wise thing to do. And you shouldn't do it, and it is now against the law. Home sellers, understand that if a buyer does that, if they violate the law, the enforcement is on you. You cannot accept it, even as I jokingly said in prior videos to realtors, if the offer is $27 million over asking. If you receive an offer that you want to accept and that has language of waiving the inspection, deny the offer and say, I am not taking your offer as it stands. And allow the broker to talk to the other broker and explain that they need to inform them. at Lamacchia Realty, our agents are going to have specific pre-written emails that are going to correctly explain to each side when this type of thing occurs. That's all I wanted to explain. I hope that helps home buyers and home sellers. I wish you all the very best of luck, whether you are buying here from a Lamacchia Realtor or not, but I certainly hope you are. And if you are, thank you very sincerely. We appreciate your business, and I hope this has helped you better understand the law. If it hasn't, also take a look at the blog that we have and speak to your realtor about it. Thank you very much.